Sienna God, hello all. Oshasahia, good evening, and Wado, thank you for watching. So this is day 11, part A of reading Hollywood Babylon by Kenneth Angers. And I'm hoping that we can get through it because there's just a little bit left and there's a lot of pictures. I'm itching to get to this book that I haven't read since I was in high school, and it's very near and dear to me, and I will get into more of that later when I read it. Anyway, so this says, it looks like a side-by-side picture of a mugshot and then the person, I guess, later on in life, because one looks younger and the other one looks older. It says Salt Lake City. Yeah, April 23rd, 1940, and it looks like his inmate number is 14055. From police files, movie star Rory, R-O-R-Y, Calhoun, but for the grace of God, still a convict. And then it says confidential, compromising material. Now I'm going to tell you, if that mugshot right there was released in the 21st century, people would have just like ate it up as far as modeling goes. You know what I'm saying? And they would have given a poor soul a ton of money, you know what I mean, or taken advantage of them. So it says two-way mirrors, end quote. The best pumper in Hollywood. Oh yeah, I'm rereading the last one. M.M.M. Marilyn M.M. Monroe, close parentheses, I mean end quotes, and then it says in quotes, Joan Crawford and the handsome bartender, end quote. This reign of terror lasted for 4 years. Considerable but unacknowledged assistance was given Harrison by two of New York's established gossipists, Walter Winchell, W-I-N-C-H-E-L-L, and Lee Mortimer. Mortimer, columnist and film critic for the, you know what, there's a Tinsley Mortimer, and I wonder if her family is related to this guy. Columnist and film critic for the now defunct Daily Mirror would meet Harrison in a phone booth, slip him a juicy story, and if by chance they turned up that evening in the same nitery, N-I-T-E-R-Y, the two men would pretend to be feuding and not speak to each other. Harrison often gave Winchell friendly plugs in the magazine and stories in which someone else was given the axe. In parentheses, example, end quotes, Winchell was right about Josephine Baker, end quote, etc., close parentheses. In return, Winchell often plugged the magazine on television. While the success of obscenities of Confidential increased with every issue, there was practically no film star who escaped its quote-unquote revelations. Some were victims of a whole series of stories: Marilyn, Orson, Lana, Ava, Frank, and Jane. Ensconced in New York, Harrison made sure that each article was based on a piece of film or a tape recording, quote-unquote evidence, which was checked by his shyster lawyers before publication. And here's a picture. It says confidential spies in the bedroom. But with increasing success and no prosecutions, he began to embroider truth with picturesque details and overreached himself. He became one of the most hated men in the country. During a hunting expedition in Santo Domingo, someone took a few pot shots at him. One day, Grace Kelly's father dropped into his New York office to smash up the place and take a poke at Harrison the day after an expose had appeared about the future Princess of Monaco. It was not until February of 1957 that a star finally had the courage to decide that enough was enough. Dorothy Dandridge filed suit against the magazine after an article appeared dealing with her alleged exploits in a forest and quote-unquote naturalist company. Dandridge asked for $2 million in damages. With the firing of the first shot, the war was on. Dozens of stars who had been slandered filed suits. When this happened, the movie industry bigwigs decided that there was a new danger. The most important personalities of Hollywood would be quizzed in public about their private lives. The gray eminences once more attempted what had been successfully done in earlier scandals: hush it up. Hollywood public relations man Robert Murphy was sent to the state capitol for talks with the attorney general. He went so far as to threaten to withdraw the financial aid the movie industry was planning to grant to the next Republican campaign. Oh, whoa. But the state persisted in its plan to take action. Thus, many stars found it advisable to take a vacation. Clark Gable went to sunbathe in Tahiti. Others took off for Europe or South America. The trial finally started in Los Angeles, August 2nd, 1957. The press called it, in quotes, trial of 100 stars, end quote. Actually, after a brief appearance by Dorothy Dandridge, who withdrew her complaint after a considerable out-of-court settlement, the trial counted only one other star, beautiful redhead Maureen O'Hara. It says Maureen O'Hara, no way. There she is up there. Confidential had informed its literati that Miss O'Hara had indulged in a quote-unquote Chinese chest. Oh, well. I've heard of Chinese chess, but not Chinese chest. End quote game in the plush seats of the Loge, L-O-G-E, section of Grauman's, Grauman, Grauman's Chinese Theater. Her playmate was said to have been an attractive South American. Confidential related, in quotes, the usher saw a couple who heated up the balcony as if it were July. Maureen, blouse unbuttoned and her hair in disarray. Oh, I get play on words, okay. Had assumed, in order to watch the movie, the oddest posture ever to be held in the entire history of motion pictures. She was stretched out on 3 seats, the lucky South American occupying the middle chair, while a picture denouncing juvenile delinquency was being shown on the screen, end quote, etc., ad nauseum. Judge Walker felt additional information was required. The scene was reenacted in the balcony. The manager of Grauman's agreed to play the part of South American. A young woman reporter was stand-in for the star. The manager sat down, the double stretched out, and even raised her legs in the air. The jury wanted further information. All 12, in parentheses, including 6 dowagers, close parentheses, repaired to row 35, where a minute, minute, M-I-N-U-T-E, examination of the 3 seats in question showed them no different from any others in the theater. Maureen did not appear until August 17th. She proved that at the time of the alleged frolics in the balcony of Grauman's, she had been in Spain. Her passport was entered as proof. She asked $5 million in damages. The witnesses persisted in spite of her passport proof of absence, insisting that it had been the actress that they had seen in the logue. Her sister, an Irish nun, emerged from a convent to come to her defense. The court brought in a lie detector, which did not prove that Maureen was telling the truth. The hung jury finally reached a compromise. The obscenity charges were dismissed. Confidential only had to cough up $5,000. There were many out-of-court settlements, however, which, when added up, came to a lively sum. The magazine paid $40,000 to Liberace and almost as much to a dozen other celebrities. The biggest actual drama of the case came with the suicide of Polly Gould, G-O-U-L-D, of the magazine's editorial staff. I don't know if you watch Stargate, but like literally I've never heard of that word outside of Stargate. But anyway, I didn't know it was like a name, but anyhow. She killed herself the night of August 16th. She was to testify the following day. It was then discovered that Polly had been playing a double game, selling the secrets of the magazine to the DA and informant Harrison of the maneuvers of the police. Following the trial, Howard Rushmore, Harrison's editor-in-chief on Confidential, in parentheses, a paranoid ex-communist, Rushmore had recently started on an anti-communist crusade, close parentheses, pulled out a gun while riding in a cab with his wife in New York's Upper East Side, shot Mrs. Rushmore, then killed himself. What? Harrison sold Confidential in 1957. Subsequently, he started all over again with a minor tabloid called Inside News. What? It didn't achieve its predecessor's fame. What? Wasn't that one? Gosh dang. It was Entertainment Tonight, and I could have swore it was Inside News. No way. Okay, anyway. It didn't achieve its predecessor's fame. The days of this type of expose were numbered. America's movie industry has declined. The public gets more mindless gossip than it can absorb daily on TV, and moreover, its shockability quotient has diminished. There are no longer more stars at MGM than in the heavens, if that studio can be said to exist at all anymore. It is an empty planetarium. The few remaining movie celebrities are more than thankful to attract some attention by discussing their foibles. Foibles, that's a funny word. Themselves on talk show hosts. In fact, after the Confidential affair, stars like Errol Flynn, Zsa Zsa Gabor, and Diana Barrymore, that's another Barrymore, started coming out with their own quote-unquote tell-all autobiographies. Why let others cash in on their private lives when they could rake in the bread for it themselves? No magazine could continue to compete with that. It says the jury visits Grauman's. When I was flipping through to see like how much was left, I noticed there's graffiti on the sidewalk there, and I was wondering what it said. Something I don't know. Look, I can't even read graffiti now. You know what I mean? Why am I trying to read that? But I don't know. But like, we were never told that, I don't know about you, but I was never told there's graffiti back then and stuff. Like, come on. So this picture says, Johnny in the boudoir, jarring note. Blood and soap. Jerry Geisler's phone rang on Good Friday, April 4th, 1958. Hollywood's most famous lawyer heard a familiar voice. End quotes. This is Lana Turner. Something terrible has happened. Could you please come to my house? End quote. When Geisler arrived at the ex-Sweater Girls colonial-style Beverly Hills mansion, Lana was in tears. Her daughter, Cheryl Crane, was near hysteria. Geisler then saw the cause, the object harshly jarring with the pretty pinkness of Lana's boudoir. The bloodied corpse of Johnny Stompanato, alias Johnny Valentine, former bodyguard of gangster Mickey, M-I-C-K-E-Y, Cohen, C-O-H-E-N, notorious gigolo, Lana's latest lover. Shortly after his arrival in Hollywood, you know, I always thought that, like, when somebody's name is like Johnny Valentine or something, right? I thought it was just made up just for, like, whatevers, but I didn't think that people actually really used it. Anyway, shortly after his arrival in Hollywood, handsome cocksure Stompanato had been sought by certain prominent ladies in the film colony. His own prominent endowment had earned him the sobriquet, S-O-B-R-I-Q-U-E-T, quote-unquote Oscar, after the Foot High Academy Award. In the spring of 1957, an enterprise in Johnny, who had never met Lana, obtained her private number and called her up. He knew, as did all America, that she had recently been separated from ex-Tarzan Lex Barker and suspected she might be lonely and available. He suggested a blind date, mentioning the names of some mutual acquaintances and dropping a few hints about quote-unquote Oscar. At that time, he was operating a gift shop in Los Angeles. During the next 15 months, he paid little attention to that business. Lana did not discover until after his death that Johnny had been married 3 times and had a 10-year-old son. She did know that he had solid connections with criminal elements, but Lana could not have cared less. Indeed, to have a real gangster for an escort with a rod under his dinner jacket added an extra thrill to the evening. Lana was particularly vulnerable emotionally at this point in her life. After a dazzling career which had gotten off to a bang with a big part in Warner's They Won't Forget in 1937, in parentheses and in quotes, it says, what a pair of tits, that's terrible, end quotes, was heard across the nation as schoolgirl Lana walked across the town square to be raped and murdered in the first reel of this epic. The rest of the film was an anticlimax, close parentheses. She went from strength to strength in 1946. Lana Turner was one of the 10 biggest women moneymakers in the country, and by the early 50s was queen of MGM. She also went from hombre to hombre. Her romances, Sinatra, Howard Hughes, Tyrone Power, Fernando Lamas, had filled the columns for 2 decades. Her marriages had not really fulfilled her. Power was the only man she had really loved, and her possessiveness had ruined that affair. After band leader Artie Shaw came Steve Crane, and it says in parentheses, Lana was carrying Cheryl at the altar, close parentheses, then millionaire playboy Bob Topping. All right, so here's some pictures. Lana and Johnny. It says Lana, Johnny, and Cheryl. There's Lana, Johnny, and then Cheryl. This one says Lana and They Won't Forget. She's like a child in that one. This one says Lana and Johnny, Holiday in Mexico. Oopsies. She had desperately wanted another child with her most recent husband, Lex Barker, but Lana miscarried. Following a run of bad films, after 18 years at the studio, MGM had dropped her. Her marriages and affairs had been dotted with violence, sometimes provoked or secretly desired. Lana had been thrown downstairs by one husband, slapped in public by another, drenched with champagne at Ciro's by a third. Once, when she went out, her pretty face hidden behind dark glasses, it was to hide a black eye. She was quoted as saying, in quotes, I find men terribly exciting, and any girl who says she doesn't is an anemic old maid, a streetwalker, or a saint, end quotes. Well, my goodness. After 30, this need for excitement became an obsession with Lana. During her separation from Johnny, in parentheses, she was making another time, another place in England, close parentheses. You know what? I think people like that, though. I kind of feel like they had an upbringing like that. So, like, even though it's terrible, it, like, reminds them of home. The letters addressed to him showed the yearning for those quote-unquote happy aches he had knowingly inflicted. Oh, my Lord. So she sent him a plane ticket, one of many gifts, and set him up in a big house in London on the quote-unquote street of millionaires. Johnny, certain of his power, became more and more demanding. When I say hop, you'll hop. When I say jump, you'll jump. He also threatened to put his stamp on her. Oh my God. In quotes, I'll mutilate you. I'll hurt you so you'll be so repulsive you'll have to hide forever. End quote. At one point, Johnny came to the set and waved a pistol at Lana's co-star, Sean Connery. What? Warning him to stay away. Okay, here's a picture. It says, nope, it doesn't say anything. Let's see if it says over here. Yeah, screen drama, Lana in love with gangster. Robert Taylor and Johnny Eager. Let's see what it says. Or is what it shows, I should say. Like that Sean Connery, you know what I mean? Anyway, let me flip it back real quick. So it says, stay away from Lana. Connery decked him. The studio, with a little help from Scotland Yard, had Stompanato ordered out of England. Yet Lana missed Johnny. Her letters begged for his caresses. And quote, so fierce that they hurt me. It is beautiful and yet it is terrible. I am yours and I need you, my man. My man is in all caps with exclamation point. End quote. The picture finished. Their SMS affair was resumed in Mexico, where guests in nearby rooms at the Hotel Villa Vera complained of their noisy lovemaking. Then they returned to Hollywood, where Cheryl awaited them at the airport. Like many of the Dream Factory's offspring, the 14-year-old daughter of Lana and Steve Crane was a confused, disturbed teenager. I bet she was. And one night in the big house on Bedford Drive, while Johnny abused Lana, good Lord, in parentheses, she had refused to continue paying his gambling debts, close parentheses, threatening her with physical harm and swearing to avenge himself on her entire family, Cheryl listened at the door. In quotes, I'll cut you up and I'll get your mother and your daughter too. That's my business. End quote. Cheryl ran into the kitchen, in parentheses, according to her own and Lana's accounts, close parentheses, grabbed the first weapon she found, a 9-inch butcher knife, and rushed back to her mother's aid. Lana later testified, in quotes, everything happened so quickly that I did not even see the knife in my daughter's hand. I thought she had hit him in the stomach with her fist. Mr. Stompanato stumbled forward, turned around, and fell on his back. He choked his hands on his throat. I ran to him and lifted up his sweater. I saw the blood. He made a horrible noise in his throat. And he's probably gurgling. In quote, Lana wept during this recital, almost fainted. She went on, in quotes, I tried to breathe air into his semi-open lips, my mouth against his, end quote. Lana was near swooning. What? Geisler supported her. A bailiff brought her a glass of water. She finished in a strangled voice. In quotes, he was dying. The press was unanimous. The most dramatic scene of Lana's career. The jury was only out 20 minutes. The verdict justifiable homicide. The press had a field day. Lana's romantic past was raked up for inspection. Her love letters, discovered at Johnny's home by his hoodlum friends, were to furnish front pages across the land. Lana was pilloried, P-I-L-O-R-I-E-D, as a dissolute. Good Lord, look at how long this knife is. Sheesh. Unnatural Mother by, is a dissolute, unnatural mother by columnist, the clergy, sociologist, and psychoanalyst. Cheryl was defended here, condemned there. In quotes, my heart bleeds for Cheryl, end quote, wrote Hedda Hopper. Walter Winchell was the only major columnist to take Lana's defense. In quote, she is made of rays of the sun, woven of blue eyes, honey-colored hair, and flowing curves. She is Lana Turner, goddess of the screen, but soon the magician leaves and the shadows take over. All the hidden cruelties appear. So here are the pictures. Lana on the witness stand. And then this one says Johnny's souvenirs, guns, and inscribed photos. I'm gonna leave it at that. Don't go hang, you, and a good chance. Okay, till we meet again. Love you, mean it.